Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pate.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we are talking about the superhero horror film. Superhero, I don't know. It's in that genre, but I wouldn't call him that. And anyway, the film Brightburn, directed by David Yarovesky and released May 24th, 2019. Which, 2019. My brain does weird things with that number, because I was like, it feels like it was longer ago than that. And then I was like, well, that's actually longer ago than it feels like it is.
Yes, this is one I had not seen, but it continued to come up on lists that we've talked about. And so it seemed like it was the right time to, jump into it.
Yeah, I remember seeing this one in theaters. And it was honestly one of my favorite movies of 2019. I really enjoyed it was something very unique and different that had a lot of tropes and great nods to certain things. And with a cast of people that I was kind of familiar with from different things. And it was just kind of hit like a little sweet spot back in 2019. I haven't watched it since then. This is the first time I've seen it since then. And trying to decide if it holds up as much as I really enjoyed it in the theaters. And I don't think quite as highly as I really enjoyed it the first time I saw it, as time's kind of gone on. However, I still really like this movie. I still really enjoyed it. It was good to watch it again and go back to it.
Well, as usual, we didn't talk about this movie before we started the podcast tonight. Mm-hmm. So Peg doesn't know what I think of the movie because I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
So
I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this one. I liked a lot of the tie-ins to the classic version of Superman. There were a bunch of different things that I kept seeing, and it just made me think, oh, that looks like that. Ooh, the colors are really like close to what, I've seen before.
Yeah.
But there was something very sinister about this movie and this character of Brandon.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, we'll go through a couple of the production notes. Was filmed in Georgia, including using the high school that they used for Stranger Things. It's a high school that is no longer like being utilized as an actual school, but it has been used for different things in Stranger Things. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool. It was written by Brian Gunn and Mark Gunn. And the name Gunn sounds very familiar. Well, Brian is the brother and Mark is the cousin of James Gunn, who we've covered James Gunn's movies on here before.
Yeah.
Slither and Belko Experiment. So this is, customary.
It's like a family affair.
It is. So James Gunn, of course, producer. Budget was between $6 and $12 million, and it grossed $32.9 million. Was 90 minutes long. Pake, give us that synopsis.
All right. Superman, but bad. or more eloquently, as IMDb put it, what if a child from another world crash landed? He was already at odds with the planet. No. What if a child from another world crash landed on Earth, but instead of becoming a hero to mankind, he proved to be something far more sinister?
Yeah. When I finished watching the movie, the first thing that popped into my head was be careful what you wish for. Because, of course, we have Kyle and Tori wishing for a child. And, well, let's see.
They got something.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they got like a great 12 years out of it.
They did.
He seemed like a really wonderful, precious, sweet little boy until something flipped.
Yes. Things definitely took a dark turn. I felt like this was an opportunity for us to get an alternate reality or kind of like a multiverse situation of like the Superman story. But also it reminded me kind of the What If storyline that we get with Marvel. Because it really is, what if the power that Superman had was used for evil?
Mm-hmm.
And we really got to see that. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard though, because it was a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a 35-year-old man that you just want them to stop him. It's like, what do you do when it's a child?
Definitely a lot of things we can talk about in that regard. It's an interesting, because it's a fun kind of take on, it's like the Superman story, origin story, flipped on its head. A little bit, it's like, it's retelling of that story of like an alien baby with incredible powers ends up on Earth, but instead of, like that synopsis said, of growing up and like having this noble idea of like, with great power comes great responsibility. That's more of a Spider-Man thing, but you see what I'm saying? That like, oh, so I'm here. I'm more powerful. I'm more capable than the humans on this Earth. So it's my job to protect them and be a hero. Versus if you flip it and it's like, oh, I'm more powerful and capable than all of these measly people. I could control this place. I could run this world. These are my puppets. These are my, to get. All it takes is that like just difference of mindset that switched. And I thought that was a really interesting concept for sure.
It definitely is. And I know that they wanted to make more after this one. And unfortunately, the rights issue is just really difficult. James Gunn, as recent as April of this year, said that the issue with rights has made it impossible to really be able to proceed in doing more of the movies.
Yeah. Like I referred to it because, we'll go ahead. I'm skipping because we can skip ahead because we don't have to recap. We don't have to. If you watch the movie and you're listening to this, then go ahead. Because, let's cut all the way till post credits. Yeah, we get Michael Rooker is this like conspiracy theorist YouTuber, which is really fun. But he's like uncovering Brightburn, which again is the name of the town that they lived in, but that becomes the name of this masked super villain child that is Brandon. He becomes like Brightburn, the Brightburn. And then, uncovering like, oh, what's the mystery of Brightburn this? And then he kind of hints at what I called this evil Injustice League, with some underwater fish monster man and a witch woman that strangles people with ropes. Which is definitely like an Aquaman and Wonder Woman hint. And then of course there's like pictures on the screen of like an evil Flash and an evil Martian Manhunter and like a mystery question mark that I can only assume is like an evil Batman. Probably he's so in the shadows. We still don't have any pictures of him, where definitely you can see ideas for like, they could have expanded this and done something real wacky with it, but they haven't they say, rights issues and just time. And a part of me is also like, you know what? Maybe it's fine that you don't though. Like, don't over milk it. Like, the concept maybe wouldn't have the legs to run super far past this one anyway. I don't know. Maybe James Gunn could pull it off, but I don't know.
I feel like James Gunn can pull a lot of things off. So I think he could do it. I just think enough time has passed that you really can't have like Jackson A. Dunn playing Brandon anymore.
Right. I mean, unless you have that kind of like a time jump and then it's like, but then, you're not dealing with kids, which I don't know, maybe you're not, I don't, based on those pictures, I don't think they were wanting to anyway. It looks like it was very much. So I don't know. I'd bring Jackson A. Dunn back as, I mean, he's not like adult. He's a, older teen, young adult. I'm not sure exactly how old he was and is now. Because I did, going on IMDb, he hasn't really done much of anything. I think he's done like 2 like indie films since this.
Yeah, he hasn't done
but
a lot.
He hasn't really done anything.
No, he's in his early 20s now. So, yeah, I thought he was great in this role because the way that he shifted between being Brandon and Brightburn,
Mm-hmm.
he could come off as this innocent 12-year-old boy, but then also this menacing, evil, destructive
Yeah.
preteen.
But also, like, there's, like, a other layer that rides between that that I think he covered really well. Where even the times where he's, oh, sweet 12-year-old innocent boy, that's a mask he's putting on. Because we see he's such... And we'll go ahead and talk about... Brandon's going to be the main character we're talking about. So I think we'll just start with him. Yeah, as we see, he's, like, super genius level. Smart. He just like sucks up information and just lives in his head, where he's sitting there drawing, not even paying attention until like a question pops up and he's like, oh, let me download every single thing that I could possibly tell you about that thing just off the top of my head. He's that smart. And so I think we see him adapt to, like, once he has this like clarification in his head of like, oh, I'm a fucking god and nobody on this planet is at my level and they're just insignificant bugs to me. But in order for me not to just, like, jump right into Shitsville, I've got to play the part, I've got to play the role for a little bit until things are right. So he's like, so I still have to be the quiet, loving, doting son and just, like, do my best to, like, go along with things. And so you kind of see him kind of blank-faced just giving those, like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, to where even when he's, like, being sweet, you're like, that's not real.
No.
He's just, it's a facade that he's put on, because I think once his brain tells him that he's more powerful and important than everybody, he just sticks with that.
Yeah.
And he's got this superiority complex. To even the point, like, his aunt / guidance counselor, he says, he's just like, oh, it's fine. He's like, I've just realized that I'm superior to them in anything they could ever be. And I've come to grips with that. It's like, I've come to accept that about myself, and it's all good.
Yeah, it sounded very sociopathic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it reminds me of some episodes of Law and Order that I've seen where kids are the culprits and you see these tendencies and their reactions to things, and it's very, I'm going to tell you some terrible things in this very calm voice, and it sounds very sweet, but not sweet at the same time, because the delivery is very calm and making it seem like it's not intense, but in reality, it's very intense. You know, the things that he's saying.
Yeah, and there's a lot, I mean, obviously he was kind of, we don't see it like in a like really major way. Like he wouldn't, like, I wouldn't necessarily say he was like bullied and like targeted too much, but he was kind of because of just how smart he was. I mean, at that age, smart kids get picked on. And he's just kind of dealing with that. He's just kind of this like social outcast a little bit. Of course, there's the one girl, Caitlin, in his class that's very supportive and sweet to him. And she just turns to him and is like, oh, it's okay. Smart guys end up ruling the planet. And he took that to heart.
He really did. You know, the one thing that really surprised me is he didn't take any of the bullying out on the bullies. Instead, he ended up hurting the one person who supported him. Well,
yeah, yes and no. She definitely, not to say in any way that like she deserved it.
No.
But she definitely, at that moment that happened, like, yeah, she had done him wrong. I mean, she let him fall on the ground, hit his head, didn't catch him, and then called him a pervert in front of the whole class. Like,
true.
Not really the most supportive in that moment.
But
like, definitely, it was because of her that he was pissed off in that moment.
Yes.
Again, not saying what he did is right or justified, but that anger directed towards her was with reason.
Yes, but he also snuck into her bedroom and scared the shit out of her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's like not cool either.
Right.
Maybe, but like, again, not to victim blame. She could handle that in a different way of like confronting him or like talking to the teacher and being like, hey, before this situation, I'm uncomfortable around him. Can we do something different? Can I not? Like,
right.
Being in that moment, it's like, again, not going to justify what he did or victim blame and say she deserved it or could, but like the reason that like the fact that it happened was like in that moment she wasn't being supportive of him.
No.
And, like, he had this like reason to have anger towards her. Again, not justified, not a good reason, not something I'd be like, oh no, she had it coming. No, absolutely not. But in his mind, where he was at, it was like the one person who had been supportive of him, and then he reached like in his own weird, not good way, had like tried to like reach out to her, and it went wrong. And so obviously, yeah, that's going to cause problems with her. And then he's just, it's this cycle. And then he's retaliating against her because of the way that she feels about him because of what he did. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he kind of was following his dad's advice.
Yeah. Yeah, he took his dad's advice of it's okay to act on urges sometimes, which, well, okay.
Not sure that was appropriate advice.
It's like, well... I'm going to get in this weird, like, I'm not going to open this can of worms. We're not going to go down too far of a hole with this. It's not bad advice. It definitely requires way more thorough clarification on what instances of urges are acceptable or not acceptable. There's a whole layer of conversation about consent that is completely skipped over or not talked about. Maybe some kind of a little addendum of like, also don't be creepy as fuck. Things like that.
Well, I think his dad was thinking about something else when he was trying to vaguely explain
and that's what I'm saying. Like, when it comes to what his dad was talking about, letting yourself be okay with exploring your own sexuality and being like open with your body through like stuff. I don't want to, again, it's a weird thing. So like I don't have kids, so I haven't had to have that talk with a kid, and then even the kids that I work with, that's not my place to have that conversation with them. So it's not something but like I know enough to, I'm like, no, like body positivity and sex positivity and stuff, like, no, it's not bad advice. You don't want kids feeling shameful about their own feelings and like bodies and things that because it's just not natural human. So like, it's not bad advice. It's just like, it was worded and presented very poorly. And Brandon, where he was at mentally, took that advice that could have been good and like, downloaded it in the wrong way and took it in a very different, like, and bad way.
Yeah, because he used it to go stalk her. Caitlin.
Yeah.
He used it to go stalk Caitlin. And then he broke her hand. I mean, he crushed her hand. Crushed it.
Mm-hmm. I did notice one random little thing is Caitlin, when she's being nice to him in class, kind of backing up to that, and then also his mother, Tori, in the opening scene the day that he crash landed, both of them had purple dye in their hair.
Yes, I noticed that.
I don't know if it means anything at all. It was just an interesting little detail of like this, like if there's some reason he's like making this like connection or something. I don't know. They don't expound on it. I don't know if it means anything, but it's just like a little detail that I picked up on. I was like, huh.
Yeah. There were other things I noticed too, though, that like reminded me so much or connected me to the alter ego of Superman. Mm-hmm. Things like the mask. Like he wore the mask or he took the mask off and it reminded me of the glasses that Clark Kent would always wear. And suddenly he'd be Superman. Also, he lifted up a truck. That's what Clark did as a kid. Like that's when his parents really started to see that he was really different. Mm-hmm. So those were just, those are a couple of things. Plus the red Afghan, like there were moments before he gets caught and before he connects with the red orb in the barn where the color of the Afghan is like the color of the cape that Superman would wear.
And it's kind of that like there's a familial connection to that. And this is something, I don't know if there was anything that was filmed and then cut out or if it just wasn't explained. But like, because I was like, the cape And the mask, I was like, where did this mask come from? He just came up with that somehow. I was like, I mean, it kind of looks a little bit badass for something some kid threw together last second.
Yes.
And then, but I was looking at like the cloth and the way that it looked. And then something clicked when Kyle, the father, is having that weird nightmare version of his memory of the day that he landed. And the baby is all swaddled in a blanket. And I realized the cape and the mask, I think, were made from the blanket he was wrapped in as a baby. And I don't know if that was a blanket that Tori had and brought out there and wrapped him up in, or if that blanket he was inside the ship when it landed.
When he arrived.
Yeah, and I don't know if something was filmed and cut or whatever, and I could be wrong, but based off just kind of my assumption looking at it, it looked like the blanket he was wrapped in a baby when he was found was used to make his costume for Brightburn.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like this like root connection within him to it.
Yeah. You know, there were just different moments, like the coloring of, at one point he was wearing like a blue, I think he was in bed and he was wearing blue pajamas and the red Afghan. It just all...
Yeah, absolutely. Just like little nods to, yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, that could be. But, no. And plus the red glowing thing in the barn that they kept locked up.
Yeah, this spaceship that he landed in, which, yeah, they kept it locked in the barn, kept everything a secret from him. Told him just, oh yeah, you were adopted, and... Which... that opens up just a whole...
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we have time to go into it too much. But it's an interesting look of nature versus nurture, that idea.
Yeah.
Right? They lied to him until he was 12, whenever he found it on his own, about the truth of where he came from, and that he wasn't actually adopted from some adoption agency, but he was literally like an alien baby that crash landed on Earth, and they took him in. And how do you tell a kid that? Like, and expect him to be able to wrap his head around that? And so we see that, like, yeah, the Bryars loved him unconditionally. They raised him well. They were attentive parents. They were good parents. But, like, whatever is in his nature, whatever he is, like, that was there. That's ingrained within him. And, like, if they would have been even more honest, more open, could things have been different? If they would have told him sooner and, like, helped him channel his abilities or understandings of himself versus him finding out later and doing it alone, would that have made a difference? I don't know. Who's to say, right?
Yeah.
But because also, you know, when he has that, like, the thing kind of activates and the lights are glowing and he's, like, waking up in the middle of the night, eyes glowing red, chanting, Chicago got cold. At least that's what it sounded like. But, you know, take the world, where that's coming from the ship. There's the nature part of it is it's a directive.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he was sent to Earth to fulfill a purpose of control and domination.
Yeah.
So maybe there's absolutely nothing they could have done that was like some Manchurian, Winter Soldier thing that's in his head that, like, when it activates, and there's nothing they could have done. Who knows?
Yeah, it's kind of like it was his destiny for it to happen. And it glowing red reminds me of red kryptonite always affects Superman in a really weird way.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, it's red. So it's affecting him, obviously, in a very strange way. And he's evil.
Which, yeah. So it leaves things open-ended on that. Like, whereas, like I said, was it a directive, like, you know, awakening in him that, like, no matter what that was going to be? Or was it, you know, because he was lied to and all that kind of boils over? Because there is that, you know, it's easy for some people, I'm sure, to look at this and be like, oh, boo-hoo, they didn't tell you, they were trying to keep this weird thing from you, but they didn't really lie to you. It's like, why are you just throwing this huge fit and meltdown over it? It's like, well, it's valid rage of being a child who's been lied to, and, like, at his age and younger, that may seem small, but, like, to kids, I think I've had this exact thing before on this podcast. To kids, small things are truly as important as big things. Yes. I don't remember. I feel like I've said that exact thing.
I think you have
in a recent episode. But and those small things with them should be treated as such with them.
Yeah.
They should be treated as big because to them they are, and they need to be looked at as big problems. Even if they're little problems, you treat them as a big problem and you help them through it. And I'm back on my mentorship mode box. It's just things that I've learned and applied over years and years of working with kids. None of them have had superpowers.
No.
Yet. Well, no, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. It's really eye-opening to see this story depicted in such a way that it goes the opposite of what we all have seen before in the telling of this story. And I actually really liked it because I think we often ask ourselves the question, well, how would my life have been affected by things if it had gone in this direction instead of that direction? Like if something bad had happened at that point or something else had stepped in to steer me in a different direction. And I think in this movie we got to see what it was like when a story that we knew very well was impacted by different factors. And, I mean, they kept these little references like it's in Kansas, those types of things that made you feel connected because you knew the story. And I think because you're so comfortable with it, all the little things that happen, you're just kind of like, wait a minute. This is way, it's just way different. And I liked it. I'd like to see similar stories in not all of the superheroes, but in some of the other ones. Also, why not let us see someone like Poison Ivy if things had gone well for her, like what she would have done? It'd be cool to see the flip side of that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like other little like differences. I mean, I guess like in the Superman story, most of the time, like Clark learns of his powers, and instead of hiding them, he's very much like, look what I can do. And then it's more of his parents being like, that's great. Let's figure this out. Let's tamp them down. Let's make sure that we're doing things correctly. And in here, he's got these dark voices in his head that's like revealing these powers to him after the fact. And I was like, man, I don't know. Creepy, cryptic, dark voices in my head are not sticking my hand in a running lawnmower blade doesn't seem sane. Gosh. But because of that, like he knows he's got super strength to this point of like invincibility. And I was like, yeah, he's still like a 12-year-old boy though. Like I'm a little surprised that he doesn't go running immediately to his mom and like, Mom, I got superpowers. But again, with kind of Brandon specifically, this genius that's within him. And I think because of how smart he is at that age, the other part of his brain takes over of like, let me run down this list of all the problems and worries that might bring if I reveal that I have these abilities. Like, so he keeps it to himself. And that could be another thing that like, because he had nobody to guide him and he just did it all on his own, that could also have led to different outcomes.
Well, again, it's the whole thing about different experiences create different results. And by not having the family support, because they're unaware of it, it pushes him in a different direction. And
and then they just weren't prepared, I don't know, kids change, kids snap a little bit and drastically change at this age anyway.
They do. Even before
but the poor Bryars were not ready for super puberty.
No, they definitely were not. And they were a really loving family. I mean, Tori and Kyle really, really loved him. And, we'll talk about them a little bit. We can talk about the people that played them because that was also a fun surprise for me. Because, again, I had no idea what I was walking into.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay, this is great.
Yeah. It was fun. But
a few of those moments for me. So. Yeah,
it's a fun cast. We'll talk about it. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so it's like, then you kind of get to these like weird moments. Yeah, super puberty. Where, he's, I mean, obviously, there's just normal it's not the usual body changes that he's going through, and it's much different. And so Kyle's not really sure how to react to him. I was like, well, that was maybe at least top 10 most awkward the talk moments of all time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do any better. Again, I don't have to worry about it, so it's okay. But, even just looking through, like, things, like, going to his room and finding stuff, I was like, oh, typical tween boy, not listening to his parents, he's starting to take a little special interest in things like girls and cadavers. Normal things.
His body was going through changes, like a child does.
Going through changes. Okay.
And that will be on Pake's Run for Your Lives album. But his body's going through the normal changes that you would get in puberty. His eyes are turning red and they glow in the dark. I mean, that's what you go through, right, Pake? You're a
absolutely.
guy. Yeah. That hits at 12, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Sleepwalking. Not really a body thing, but
I mean, your body does it.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does.
Just going from having a crush on Caitlin to doing a crush on her. It's
Man, I felt for her because even though you say, well, she wasn't at the time, she didn't deserve it, as you said.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
And he was creepy because he took what his father said literally.
Yeah, I get so he meant well, and I'm like, that piece of advice, sometimes it's okay to act on urges. It's like, sure, that's great advice if you clarify what you mean by that. Specify what urges you're talking about, because showing up in this girl's bedroom in the middle of the night, not one that you should...
No.
That's not what he's talking about.
No, and the music, what was the song on the laptop? Like, that seemed like a really, old school song. How on earth did he know about it? It sounded, old,
yeah,
50s or 60s.
Yeah, which we don't know. Well, I was gonna say we don't know what time period this was in, but no, they were using cell phones and texting each other, and they had it was modern,
right,
current day. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just one of those kind of unique kids who just gravitates towards older music. They're out there.
Well, he's maybe an old soul.
Yeah.
I do know someone like that. That's kind of an old soul in a millennial body.
Yeah. So he's never... It's one of those little interesting things that Kyle throws out. He's like, he's never bled, he's never bruised, he's never... It's like, wow. So his body invincibility has kind of been a thing since he was little, and
yeah,
that's interesting. Of course, until now, the ship actually cuts him as he falls on it after he's floating above the ground, chanting creepily.
Yeah,
as one does. But yeah, that just once things activate, he gets creepy, and you just see him. It's very much a different person. I had to I wrote down just the exact quote, the scene of the second time he shows up creepy in Caitlin's bedroom. I want to tell you what I learned tonight. I learned that I'm very special. You're one of the only people in the world that know how special I am. But someday they will all know. So it's just the most ominous, most creepy. And then the way that she goes, my mom told me not to talk to you. And he goes, I'm going to take care of that. It's like, oh God.
Man.
And then he's just gone. Immediately you're like, well, that's not going to be good.
Yeah, he took care of it, and I thought of you when she was pulling the glass out of her eye.
I forgot about the glass shard in the eye. Fuck. I hate it so much.
I totally knew you were going to have problems because...
I forgot about that part.
Yeah. And they showed it, her pulling the glass out, and I'm just like,
yeah, I
really didn't need to see all of that. At least with Caitlin's hand getting crushed, it was very quick. You really didn't see... I mean, you saw it, but it was fast, and they were on to other things, so it wasn't, a slow process. With her, it was slowly pulling the glass out, and I'm just like, oh, man. It did create this really bizarre blood red on one side, clear on the other, way that
Which was a really cool effect.
It was. It was very cool. I'm sure it didn't feel cool, but it looked cool.
Yeah. Because Brandon really embracing the logo that he drew for himself. I mean, it's kind of cool. I think it would have been great for him if he would have taken a path as a musician or something instead of a murderous supervillain.
Yes.
Used it as a great, album logo or like.
It does make such a great album logo. And I wondered, it's his initials, but it also is.
Yeah, it's the BB.
Right, is Brightburn, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of dual purpose, I think. And he's attached to it. Like, he's been drawing it and leaving it places.
Obsessively.
Yeah.
Like a serial killer with, like, a calling card. Like, is legit what, like, he leaves it on the windows all over the diner. Or, like, paints. He leaves his little, finger painting art project on the side of the road after killing his uncle. And then even at the end, after he's thrown a plane into his house.
Oh my god.
You can see, again, in blood written on the side of the, like, tail of the plane. He left his little Brightburn
calling card.
Brandon Breyer calling card there. Yeah.
Yeah. That was creepy. That was very creepy.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, he had completely transitioned at that point to being the bad child, the supervillain.
Yeah. Which just popping up around in different parts of the diner, and then I hadn't seen this since the theater, so I was trying to remember, like, does he lock her in there and just let her like freeze? I was like, oh no, he's like full on laser beam eyes, rip the doors off. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And like part of me, I'm like, should I feel a little bit bad about Erica? Maybe, but like also she was a real dick and said some pretty awful things about him. So like,
yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, I liked Tori telling her off of being like, if talking trash about a 12-year-old child makes you sleep better at night, then maybe you're the one that needs some help. I was like, yeah.
Tori was a mama bear, and we'll talk about her in a minute. But she was definitely a mama bear.
Mm-hmm. But I think, so Erica's one thing, but where he really crosses a line is once he starts targeting his family, his aunt and uncle. It's the impulsive behavior of a kid his age amplified through this lens.
Yes.
Right? Because kids are very impulsive. But man, again, that creepy thing where he is at the door and just the way that delivery. Again, I don't know why Jackson Dunn hasn't done more. But, and again, I'm not going to, it's like, I mean, he's in his early 20s now, so maybe stuff. But, like, kids who don't continue acting, I'll never hold that against him, because it's like, be a kid, do things you want to do. But he delivered that, like, creepiness well, that just whole, like, you said something about talking to the sheriff. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. It'll be bad for everybody. Bad for the sheriff, bad for me, bad for you.
I know.
But just the way he delivers, he's like, well, be safe, sweetie. And he goes, okay, you too. It's like, no. Don't like that.
I couldn't figure out, did he kill her? I don't know. And she definitely doesn't want to have him come live with her. I mean, at the end of the movie, he took out his mom and his dad and his uncle. So all that's left is his aunt. I wouldn't want him to come live with me.
No. I'm glad that she was unhurt.
Yeah.
I mean, like, she lost her husband. She lost her family. But, like, I feel like that'd be too far for Brandon. Because she was, like, just very sweet, honest, caring school counselor. And I was like, that's just an important person that kids need. And you have no reason to take her out.
Right.
So I'm glad that if anybody's making it through, it was her.
Yeah. I mean, she seemed really shocked when he was talking to her or answering her questions about feeling bad about what he did to Caitlin.
Yeah.
And just seeing him be so stone-faced and emotionless and say things in a very matter-of-fact way without any, no inflection. It's just flat.
Yeah. And again, he wasn't good enough at putting that facade on of like, yeah, he could fake being like calm and, but he couldn't really fake actual like empathy or care for other humans. Like at that point, like, or that's something he couldn't really fake. And that comes, that answer where she said, "Do you feel bad about what you did to Caitlin?" He's like, "Well, sometimes when, bad things happen to people, it's for a good reason." And like, that's the only thing you can come up with. Like,
yeah, it's not.
All right,
it's definitely not something that you want to be saying if you're being evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if she hadn't been she's the de facto guidance counselor, and I feel like if she hadn't had to be the guidance counselor, her husband would probably still be alive.
Yeah.
Because
Noah was just in like wrong place, wrong time, where he walked in and saw Brandon there. And again, it's that impulsiveness of a kid, because it was just this idea of like, you're in trouble, get in the truck, I'm taking you back to your parents, I'm going to tell them what you're doing, like you're being weird. And it was just like this impulsiveness, like of a little kid who panics and acts out because he doesn't want to be in trouble. It's just,
it makes it worse.
Amplified to the superhero with super strength and laser eyes ability, where it's a lot worse the way he lashes out.
Yeah, poor Noah. That was really sad because Noah really loved him. He bought him a gun. Like, he went against his parents' wishes and bought him a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, him and his aunt seemed very much like the cool aunt and uncle that you would want to have, the ones who would get you the cool presents. And then it's like flipped on its head because Noah finds him in his closet wearing a creepy mask.
It's not creepy. Yes, it is, Brandon. Don't tell yourself it's not creepy. You're not fooling anybody, dude. It's very creepy, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, it's like the middle of the night. Don't be standing in your closet.
In my closet. Yeah,
it's creepy, dude.
I totally get it. Like, it's so creepy. And Noah had a couple of drinks, but not enough drinks that he should be having hallucinations. I mean, he knows it's real. So it just ended up being so disappointing, I guess. It really ended up being disappointing because I really was hoping that they would make it. I was hoping his family would make it. But also, when you have stories like this, you have to really be ready for bad things to happen and no one making it out.
Yeah, and especially when we get to the end, because then everything just ramps up from there. I mean, he literally had his dad attempt to kill him in the woods, which didn't work out. So, of course, he's just like, well, Brando's going scorched earth at this point.
Yep.
And then on the phone, his mom knows the truth about him, so I guess she's next. Well, aside from the sheriff's department who show up so they can get smeared and smashed all over the lawn in the house.
The sheriff's death was so, like, I knew it was coming, but for it to be that way, I was like, okay. He has no trouble, like, destroying people, basically. I mean, what he did to his uncle with flipping the car up and then dropping it down, not only lifting it up, but like lifting it up so it's vertical and dropping it down. And his uncle's face hit the steering wheel and his jaw was just completely removed.
Yeah. I've mentioned a lot on this podcast, like with certain movies that have a scene or an image that immediately comes to mind when the name of the movie comes up. Brightburn, this is it. Is Noah's death scene, is him in the flip truck with his jaw just completely hanging off. Anytime Brightburn comes to mind, it's like the little flashes in my brain is like Brandon with the mask floating in the air and then Noah's jaw. And it's like, boom, boom. And he's like, yeah, that movie. I know exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and then his hand.
Which that death scene.
And he's holding it, trying. Man.
But I love Matt Jones in that moment. Before that moment, though, whenever he's like trying to get away and then like, you know, the car stalls out and then he's like hitting and the lights come on and Brandon's standing there on the road and then the headlights turn off. And then he bangs on it again and they come back on and he's floating in the air. And he goes, nope. No. It's like, yeah, that would be me in that moment. Just like, no. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Oh, no.
It's like if you close your eyes thinking if you open them, it's going to get better. And it doesn't. It never gets better. It's just a mess.
Like, he doesn't even know how to process this. It's like his nephew is wearing the creepy mask, floating in the air. And he's like, fuck it. No. Just no. I don't want...
Who do you think you are, Damien? Because Damien is... Another movie that we should cover at some point is The Omen.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt Jones. Just throw him out there real quick. To see him as Uncle Noah. He is another alum of The Office on this show. Him and David Denman, of course, that played Kyle. The father there was Roy on The Office. And then Matt Jones played... I can never remember the character. He was Dwight's cousin.
Mose?
No, he wasn't Mose. That was Mike Schur. He was another... He showed up in like season 9.
Oh, okay.
9. He was like near the end of the show.
Okay.
He was a Shroot.
He was a
cousin.
Shroot. Okay.
He was a Shroot.
Okay.
Yeah. They popped up in a few episodes. Of course, then most people are going to know him as Badger from Breaking Bad.
Which, finally, I started watching Breaking Bad. I'm a season and a half in.
Mm-hmm.
And Badger is a riot.
Yeah, I love Matt Jones. He's great. He was also... I didn't watch the show all the time. I picked up random episodes here or there at work. The show Mom with...
Anna Faris.
Yeah, Anna Faris. And he was like her ex-husband or something, and you know, was kind of like shared custody with their son or whatever, and he was like the little bit I saw in that, he was fun. The little boy that played his son, this is like a random, because I listen to like Office Ladies and all that. So there was going to be, I'm like, this is a weird tangent, but there was going to be an Office spinoff called The Farm, which was going to star Rainn Wilson as Dwight leaving Dunder Mifflin and then just working on his beet farm. And then Matt Jones as his cousin or whatever was going to be a regular on that show. Also was there on the farm. And then this little boy, I don't know the name of the actor, played Dwight's nephew, who was going to be on that show.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt Jones went on to be the father of that same little boy on Mom after the farm pilot, didn't work out and they didn't go with that show. Mm-hmm. It's just a funny little like random.
Yeah. I had heard about the spinoff. I don't remember him on The Office, but I definitely do for Breaking Bad. It wasn't fun to watch him meet his end the way he did here. It was gruesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of the deaths were gruesome. Like...
Yeah, there wasn't like a ton of them, but like...
Yeah.
They made them impactful and count when they were.
They were gross. I mean, the sheriff and then the deputy was just all like the skin ripped off. All I could think is, this is the Terrifier. I mean, it is. It's kind of like the Terrifier. The skin thing. Mm-hmm. That is one peg I don't know if we should ever cover. I don't know.
It's funny. I was at a speakeasy here in town like earlier this week, and the people, like the bartender and the people like manager in there that were working are big like horror movie people too. We were talking actually about this podcast. I was telling them a little bit about this, and we were talking about different movies, and Terrifier came up, and one of them was like, I haven't seen it. They're like, since you have the podcast, and they're just like, what are your takes on those movies? And my response, because I wasn't going to give anything away, but I was just like, maybe I'm just desensitized to a lot of things. Because like, yeah, it's super gory and super gruesome, but like this whole idea of people are like getting sick and throwing up and passing out and leaving the theater and not being able to handle it. I was like, I watched both of them back to back in one night, and like, yeah, they're pretty over the top gory and stuff, but like, it doesn't bother me. It's like, maybe I'm just desensitized. I was like honestly, like the really fucked up parts of those movies, I'm not like horrified. I'm going, oh wow, that's really cool. How did they do that? The practical effects,
Oh
the
my gosh.
prosthetics. I was like, I want to know what kind of prosthetic work went into that, because that's fucking cool. Like, that's what I'm paying attention to while watching that stuff. Like, I want to know how they did that.
The second film, you talk about how, oh, when I hear that movie, I think of that scene. There's a scene in the second film.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Good God, help me. Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I think those movies take it so far to where, like, it doesn't even bother me anymore, because it's just so much that, like, I'm the, like, practical effects nerd in me is just like, oh, this is cool. I want to know how they did that.
I think at some point we should do an episode where we talk about what our favorite use of practical effects have been in the
Could be
movies
fun.
we've covered.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should do that. I'll put it on the list.
All right. Anyway, weird tangents. We like to do that sometimes. Talking about The Office and Terrifier. Anyway, this is the only podcast where The Office and Terrifier can be tied together in the same tangent.
We love our tangents.
Yeah, back to this. So yeah, again, you mentioned something I was going to play off of, is you said that he has no problem just killing people and destroying people. And so that makes it even more terrifying, I guess, of the way that he's dealing with his mother, with Tori at the end, where it's cat and mouse. He's literally toying with her. Like, you can see he's enjoying this. He is fully like, it is cat and mouse. This is his prey. This is his, like, that he's like, yeah, I could just destroy her, obliterate her in a second, like I did the sheriff or Erica. But it's like, but no, he's having fun. This is a game to him. He's, again, it's a different kind of pleasure urge that he's, allowing himself to go after. But that's what this is. It's kind of circles back. Anyway, it's a different kind of urge that you should allow yourself to follow than his dad was talking about, in another way. To now he's got these violent urges and these, like, very sick, twisted, and he's allowing himself to just enjoy it and find pleasure in it in that way.
Yeah, he's gotten very sadistic in the things that he's done. And even pulling his mother and taking her at the very end up into the clouds, way, 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 way up into the clouds, which reminded me of Superman and Lois. And I think it was the first movie. Again, I haven't watched it in such a long time, but I remember he took her up into the clouds at one point. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of like what happened then. But he also didn't drop her.
Yeah.
To go down. It's like it's the sadisticness in him. How can I kill her and make it even more insane or crazy or brutal?
Yeah.
I mean, in the way he took his father out by just burning a hole in his head.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Kyle and Tori, this was their child that they wanted, and it just happened to land there. And I thought he loved his parents, but I think the reason their deaths were even more brutal is because he did love them. And when they turned on him, that was the ultimate betrayal. And he could not reconcile it at 12.
Yeah, I don't know if he ever would have hurt them.
No.
Aside from that. But it was at that point where it was like, they've literally abandoned me to the point that they both tried to kill me.
Right.
Like, okay, then all bets are off.
Yeah.
Obviously, humanity has failed me once again. I am better than humans because I would never want to kill the people I love.
Right. I mean,
of course, I don't know, because he killed his Uncle Noah and then sit there straight-faced the next morning going like, I wouldn't hurt him. I loved him. So, yeah, who knows?
Yeah. But he drew everything in his notebook. Like, all the other deaths, he drew them out.
Yeah.
And that's when Tori realizes that her husband was right. Because she sees all of this in that notebook. And he's drawn it in great detail, along with his calling card.
Yep.
And, at the very end, when he's sitting in the ambulance, Or
Yeah, just,
and you hear the voiceover or the souls that he's the sole survivor, like the news report.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everyone who would have suspected anything about him is gone at this point, except for his aunt, but I don't know if she's ever gonna, out of fear, speak to anybody again about anything.
No.
But yeah, I mean, he's just like, throw an airplane at the house, get a cookie, call it a day.
Yep.
Except continue to be a supervillain doing supervillain shit. That's still gonna be part of the daily plan.
Yeah, it was.
So the agenda.
It was interesting. After he drops his mother and that plane is coming, I'm thinking, what is he going to do to that plane? Like, is he going to crash it down? And then the next frame is basically the plane had crashed. I mean, it's perfect way to kill his parents or, quote, kill his parents.
Yep.
And that's it. Like, he's on his own. And who knows where he would have ended up after that. Mm-hmm. Except we know that he's out causing more mayhem.
Yep. Just having the time of his life.
Yep, for sure.
Just a young teenage kid out there being crazy and wild and having fun, living life.
He just started going through puberty. It was going to be worse.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, puberty's bad enough. This was just the beginning.
Super puberty. Like, it's a whole new level.
What is the name of the cartoon that's on Netflix that's about puberty?
Oh, Big Mouth. I was singing the theme song to that earlier. That's what that was earlier. It was the theme song to Big Mouth.
Yeah.
I'm going through changes. Yeah.
Yeah. You can just imagine just how bad it's going to get. And
yeah, at least none of those kids had superpowers.
No, they did not.
Had a lot of other weird things about them, but no superpowers. But yeah, I think that
covers everything that I have for Brandon. I feel like we covered most of the movie through Brandon, but there is still a couple things here and there. I feel
got a few things, mainly Tori and Kyle. I have together. Talk about a lot of them, which we haven't. Everything, but yeah, Elizabeth Banks and David Denman, two people I very much enjoy seeing. So always, good.
I was surprised and excited. The last thing that we talked about that had Elizabeth Banks connected was Cocaine Bear.
She was the director of Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, so it's great to be able to talk about her again. Really enjoyed her character and what she brought to the role. And the fact that she was a fierce mama bear. Like, she was going to defend her child. Unfortunately, when Kyle said he wanted to take his son out on a camping trip or whatever for the weekend, I knew what he was going to do. And I knew it was going to go
absolutely. Bad. It's like, really, Tori? Are you really buying that? Like, I wouldn't buy that. Like, how many times leading up to that has Kyle literally said, we need to do something about it. We should have done something about him. We got to do something about it. And then for him to go, I'm going to take him out somewhere remote, just the two of us. It's like, that doesn't set off all the red flags in your head, Tori. Like, exactly. You should have known better. What are you?
Exactly. And Kyle's reaction to Noah giving Brandon the gun and then taking it away from Brandon so he can't even look at it. And then getting upset because Brandon was upset about it. I'm kind of like, well, you should have expected that you taking the gun and not allowing him to even look at it really was going to elicit a pissed off response.
Yeah. Kyle, a good father, loving father for sure.
Very much so, yeah.
But yeah, he was also kind of impulsive, and I think his reactions, even if this was just some normal kid without superpowers and a murder fetish, was at least, any other normal kid going through puberty and stuff, probably just Kyle's kind of abrasiveness on some of his stuff, he would have butted heads with any normal preteen kid as well. Like, it's just his parenting style. He's a little more aggressive. He's a little more just like,
Yeah.
let me yell at you about something before sitting down and calmly talking to you about it. And
yes.
it's a fault, but like also doesn't make him like a bad person or a bad dad either. Like, because he's doing it out of love, because he cares and he's worried.
Yes. And he, honestly, kids at that age are pushing the boundaries as much as they can.
Yeah,
They're going to
absolutely.
try to get away with what they can, even before that.
Mm-hmm.
Kids just start to push boundaries, and I think and feel like Brandon was starting to do that as a 12-year-old. He's
Yeah,
a preteen.
absolutely. What he's gonna do at
Yeah.
that age. It's what kids do.
Yeah.
So you've got to have like that level of like understanding and patience and like just roll with it, because the more you butt heads with it, the harder they're gonna fight back. It's-
Yeah. You have to pick your battles, really, with kids.
Yeah. Mhm.
The most important ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could tell, like, he took it as a blessing. They'd been trying unsuccessfully for a while, it seems. And so it's like, all they wanted was a baby, and then next thing you know, one falls literally in their, field. From space!
The stork got a little off course
Yeah.
and delivered it within some sort of metal machine,
Mhm.
spaceship.
It was interesting getting like the home footage earlier, because looking at it, I feel like I know exactly what they did. It looks like they took actual home footage of Jackson Dunn as a baby and a toddler. They just took footage that his actual parents had taken and then added a voiceover from Banks and Denman, which was really interesting. Because I kind of put myself as like, it had to feel a little weird to like Jackson's actual parents watching like their kids' home footage that they took of him with commentary from these actors.
I think they do similar things though when they're trying to pass off that old stock, like not stock footage, but old footage.
Yeah.
Old family.
I've seen
footage.
other times where it's just some other random like babies and toddler actors that like they pretend, but like looking at this kid's face, the baby, I was even like, oh, that's an actual baby Jackson A. Dunn. Like that's actual like home footage of him as a little baby that they like borrowed from his family and used in this movie.
Yep.
That's interesting.
They do that a lot, even with pictures. Like,
yeah, oh, of course.
They
yeah.
just cut out things and take photos and Photoshop it all together. Sometimes it's done well, sometimes not so much.
Like this one, I never even would have noticed it like the first time in theaters. But again, with a podcast lens, I'm watching that like footage with like hearing Elizabeth Banks and David Denman like, oh, do that, like say like, oh, little guy, what are you doing here? Oh, you're so cute. And I was like, clearly this is like ADR. Like, I was like, Elizabeth Banks and David Denman are standing in a studio recording these lines while watching this footage. Yep. I can tell. I can hear that now. It's like...
yeah, it's... And I do have to say, too, the CGI was a little bit iffy in some spots.
Yeah. Not terrible.
But not...
I've seen way worse.
Right. But and not in all spots, but there were some spots I was like, no. I think when he had his mother above the clouds, that was kind of...
Yeah. Tori come down the stairs. I was like, oh shit, it's the Saviors! Oh, wait. She's just whistling for her son. Or for Negan! No, it's probably for Brandon. Just for Brandon.
I know.
Like, that's all I can think of now. I was like, no!
Where's Jeffrey Dean Morgan? He's not in this movie.
Yeah. But then I like that they bring that back. Of course, their version of that is then it's like a call and response as Brandon then.
Yep.
So, the reverse of it. Yeah, we see Kyle being a little bit more questioning and worried about things than his wife was. As far as like the extent of Brandon's behavior switch. The chicken incident is a big one. He's quite disturbed by that.
Because he was out there staring at them.
Yeah. And I mean, it's probably safe to say Kyle's been like taking care and living out on this farm for like this was probably his dad's like parents' farm that he inherited. Like he's probably been here. He knows what he saw. He's like, when he's like, there's a wolf doesn't do that. He's right. He knows that. But, like, Tori is being a little bit more defensive. Like, she doesn't really want to hear it. You know, he's pushing really hard at it. I mean, even to the point where he kind of says things he's going to regret. Maybe, I don't know. Like the whole, like, that's not our son. It's a thing we found in the woods. And it's like, all right, that's rough after 12 years of being his parent. But, like, he's really dealing with a lot. Like, he's really freaked out by what is happening and what he's seeing because he knows. I mean, he found the shirt and he's reached this breaking point. He's like, I'm scared and I know that Brandon is lying and I'm worried about what he's capable of. And him and Tori are not on the same page. That's her little boy and she's going to defend him no matter what.
And she says that.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not going to turn on my child. She was horrified to think that Kyle could do it. And yet he did.
Mm-hmm. And that's, where he takes him out to the woods to have him look at the flowers.
All Walking Dead all the time here on Run for Your Lives.
Yeah. So while they're out there, then you have Tori putting on a really good poker face for the sheriff. I thought she did a pretty good job. But then after he leaves, I mean, you can tell, like, she immediately recognizes Brandon's drawing.
His calling card.
So she's like, as soon as, like, the sheriff shows her that picture, on her face, the poker face is good, but you know in her head it's going, fuck, shit. Like, oh, that's not good. She goes back inside, immediately goes to his journal, is just like, oh, no. Mm-hmm. Kyle was right, and it's real bad.
Yep. Unfortunately, she didn't wait for Kyle to answer when she called him. And she spilled all the beans, or all the tea, to her son.
Yeah. And Kyle was not there anymore, which it's just so rough there. Because I was like, even if you have the strongest belief that he's a murdering psycho, it takes a certain level of darkness to take your own son out to the woods and put a bullet in his head. It's like, he was like gone at that point where he's like, once that's the plan. And I mean, he goes for it, shoots Brandon square in the skull, and then the kid just stands up and looks back at him, shocked at his father, and it's like, oh, and it was in that moment Kyle Brewer knew he fucked up.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing as far as, like, to take your child out into the woods, even though you know that he's inherently evil, to be able to pull the trigger.
Yeah, like, Kyle was too far gone at that point. Which then, which is funny that, like, Brandon gets up from that, looks at him, and then, like, disappears. And it's like, even in that moment, he's so mad, but the little 12-year-old boy in him is like, but before I kill him, I gotta have a costume change. I gotta go back to the truck and go get my mask and my cape. Like,
and whoever,
if I'm gonna do this, I gotta do it right. I gotta do it in style.
Whoever did the mask, like that I mean, it basically was the same Afghan. Took a piece of the Afghan and I mean, it looks like a child would have done it that way.
Yeah, it was I like that a lot. But he takes Kyle down, and then Kyle's sitting there. I was like, begging for your life, and please don't kill me. Please. I'm like, I don't think he's gonna listen to you, dude.
No.
I mean, there's not really any coming back from luring him into the woods and shooting him in the head. Like, now it's his turn to blast you in the head, and you don't have the advantage of being invincible. Sorry, sucks for you.
And then it was over, and it was at that moment that Kyle left this earth.
Yeah, and then it goes back. We talked about him toying around with Tori and all of that. And then as she's out running, Tori remembers the only thing that has hurt him is the ship. So she goes for there. And I was like, oh, look, we found Erica.
Oh, man. And he made a science project out of her.
I don't even want to know.
It was kind of like dissected. Like, that's what I thought. Is that it looked like he dissected her and stuck her on the wall.
So, yeah, we're good. And then, I mean, Tori, again, I don't like to victim blame in this movie, but, like, come on, Tori. It was the worst timing. Like, was he sincere? I don't know. I don't know if he would have hurt you. But, like, from like following up this like hug and Brandon looking her in the eyes and going, I want to do good, Mom. And it's like, what a moment. And you can't follow that then by immediately being the second parent to attempt to kill him today.
No.
You know, like any little bit of possibility of light in him, you just extinguish that right there. You just, with that betrayal, any chance you would have had of bringing him back around, you just ended it.
Yeah. It's over.
Bye-bye. Like,
it's over.
Yeah.
Gone away. Finished.
Kaput. So yeah. That's all the notes I've got on the Briars.
I think that's good. I think we've covered so much of this. What?
Yeah, I think I have any other... Not really. Yeah, I think I've covered, because I covered the Matt Jones and Uncle Noah stuff, Aunt Marilee, the sheriff stuff, just him connecting things with the symbol. That's what put him there, is like, for whatever reason, Brandon can't help but like a serial killer has to, it's the danger of being caught. It's a game to him. And then lastly was just another like actor catch, is I was like, oh look, it's Steve Agee playing a character who's being dumb and saying stupid shit. That Matt tracks, he's good at that. He does that a lot. And he was spot on 100%. He's the character who's there at the bar with Noah and Kyle, who is like, he's the one that stands up and goes, well, maybe it was your son. Like, it's like,
God. You don't say that.
I mean, he was 100% right.
But still.
But yeah, because he's one of those actors and comedians. He's a stand-up comedian and stuff too, where I'm like, oh, Steve Agee, he's funny. And he's always these random weird like roles in movies where it's like, oh, you're the dumb guy. Got it. That's what he does. But yeah, that's, I think, all I got.
Well, the one thing that I have left is just something that I found, and it's basically different. When the movie was released in different countries, it has different names. Like in Spain, it was released as El Hijo, which is the son.
The son, yeah.
But then in Latin America, it is Brightburn, El Hijo de la Oscuridad. And it translates to Brightburn, the son of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an Italian one called L'Angelo di Male, Angel of Evil. So all these different things make it sound different than what it is. Like, it could have sounded like something like Damien the Omen or one of those other things, but it really, it's just different than what, Brightburn, I had never heard of that word ever, like being part of any Superman story. So...
Yeah. I mean, within this story, it's literally just the name of the town.
Yeah.
We're in. It's Brightburn, Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun. I've been mentioning this one off and on for seasons, I think.
You have.
It's a movie that I wanted to cover at some point. I think I've tied it into some of other movies. Even I think when we did like Little Evil or something, it's just like evil murderous children. I was like, we haven't done Brightburn yet. We need to do that. So yeah, it's good to do that.
Yeah. And we did Overlord like a week or two ago, and I don't know, I just got in this mindset of, okay, well, I'm going to kind of float out ideas for the next couple of episodes so we can kind of think ahead to things, because we're actually having a guest on next week to talk about a movie. So I just kind of plan things ahead a little bit for a few weeks. I'm not getting in the habit of it. It's just, for now, I'm feeling like, okay, I have time to kind of think out some stuff. Because that's one of the things that's changed about this podcast is we used to plan things out a lot more, like for weeks.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
Now it's just like, what do we want to talk about this week? That one? Okay, cool, let's do it.
Yeah. It's much more laid back. It's just kind of organic, I guess, the way that it all comes about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's fun. A lot of good movies to cover.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got around to this one.
Yeah.
And we got some good ones coming up soon. So
we do.
It'll be fun.
It's been fun. And there it is.
You got the feedback phone going off. Have to see if anybody else had some thoughts on Brightburn. Let me go get that. All right, this week we do have a little bit of feedback for Brightburn. Excited to see. This first one, we actually hear from Ben, our good friend Ben. I don't hear from him too often on feedback, so I like that. He says, I remember really enjoying this movie, but I haven't seen it since it released. Well, hopefully check it out again now that we covered it, because it's a fun time to revisit.
Revisit.
Mm-hmm.
Ben has a podcast called Revisited.
I didn't even mean to do that, but that's wonderful.
Isn't it? Good job. So, Catherine, hello, Catherine. Great to hear from you. I love killer kid horror movies like The Bad Seed, Children of the Corn, Orphan, and The Omen, but I can't think of anyone quite like Brandon. The kids from the Village of the Damned are close, but not nearly as powerful. I loved all the effects, especially the hand-breaking and happily struggled through the glass in the eye scene.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was rough. I am really looking forward to watching this one again.
Nice. Hope you enjoyed your rewatch. And thanks for writing in. And then lastly, we have one from Mark, who says, as a comic book geek, I absolutely love this movie, as it is very similar to the Superman Red Son, and I think the Guns may have even pitched it to Warner Brothers before Sony picked it up.
So if you'd like to submit feedback, you can find us at Facebook and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please tell your friends we're available on all podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we always do appreciate it. And of course, speaking about sharing the love, gotta give those shout outs to things going on in the Podcastica universe around us. Of course, The Cast of Us, which is the Last of Us / old Walking Dead cast with Jason and Lucy, still continuing their Walking Dead rewatch until Daryl Dixon Season 2 comes very soon, and then they'll be covering that. They'll take a break from their rewatch. But right now, you can continue their rewatch with them, Season 3, Episode 11, I Ain't a Judas, and they have Rachel with them on that one as a little special guest, so you can definitely check that one out. And then The Cast of the Rings, which is the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power over on Amazon Prime, with Penny and Anwin. They're covering that as Season 2 is running right now. So you can check that out as they covered Episodes 3 and 4 of Season 2 this week. So give that a listen. You're checking that show out and give them some love. And then lastly, outside of Podcastica, we always give some love to our friends over at TV Podcast Industries, who are continuing their coverage of the final season of The Umbrella Academy over on Netflix. So you can give them some love and go check that out over there. And then if for whatever reason you want more of me and Daphne every week, still if you haven't, make sure to go check out our other podcast, Buffalo, on the Buffalo Podcast, where we've got our friends Jeff and Jerry with us, playing all kinds of goofy games, talking about all kinds of stuff, trying to make each other laugh. It's always a ridiculous time, but it's a lot of fun, and we're having a blast doing it. So go check it out and hang out. It's quick, short, like 30 to 40 minute episodes. You know, something a little fun. Hang out with some friends as we do too.
That is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, other than that, you can always come back right here to Run For Your Lives next week, as we will be cranking out some more fun stuff for you. Definitely what we're doing next week.
Well, when a couple and an escaped convict are trapped in a remote gas station, they struggle to survive against a deadly parasitic creature that transforms its victims into monstrous hosts. Working together, they must confront both the terrifying organism and their own inner demons. We are joined by our very good friend, Levi, from Talking Tremors podcast, to discuss the 2008 film Splinter. It's directed by Toby Wilkins and stars Jill Wagner, Paulo Costanzo, and Shea Wiggum.
Big fun one there. So yeah, check that one out and give us some feedback and stuff for that next week. We'll be up. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to talk with Levi anytime we can have them on. So it's a good time.
Well, that brings us to the end of another fun episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pate.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.